Welcome to Wanderlust and Wishes, the podcast where we explore the world one destination at a time.
I'm Julie.
And I'm Krystle.
As travel agents with fantastical vacations, we are here to share our passion for travel and help you turn your wanderlust into reality.
From hidden gems to bucket list adventures, join us as we dive into the sights, sounds, and stories of our favorite destinations.
So grab your passport, pack your bags, and let's embark on this journey together.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 95 of Wanderlust and Wishes. Today, we're going to talk about the two Disney parks in the United States, Disneyland versus Disney World, looking at the biggest differences that you need to know if you're a first timer at either park. But first, we're going to go over some news. It's been a little bit since we've talked about news, so we have a couple things we wanted to talk through.
There's so much. If you need a promo or if you want to know if something's closing or opening, there's a good chance something is. So first, on the attraction opening reopenings, we're starting with the refurbished Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger spin on April the 8th. Imagineers have added new handheld blasters, which is exciting, scoring screens and targets effects to the Magic Kingdom version. So Disney is also introducing a new robot character named Buddy to help instruct riders how to play and defeat the evil Emperor Zurg. And if they took away my secret targets for Galactic Hero, I'm going to be so mad.
It is going to be nice, though, to have the handheld blasters because the way that they are now, it makes it so hard. I'm terrible at this game.
The ones at Disneyland pick up. So that's how they are out there.
Oh.
So the Disney World one, it's like, well, this sucks because it's fixed.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't do this at Disneyland, so I didn't realize that. So moving into May is also going to bring some new updates, refreshed attractions. The Walt Disney Studios Courtyard at Disney Hollywood Studios, that's going to open on May 26th. Actually, all of this is going to open on May 26th. The new Disney Junior Mickey Mouse Clubhouse Live, that's also at Hollywood Studios. Soarin' Across America has been refurbed. It's going to be reopening at Epcot. And then Bluey's Wild World at Conservation Station at Disney's Animal Kingdom is going to also open on May 26th. So these are four pretty big things. The other thing they're doing a limited time character experience at both Magic Kingdom and at Epcot. Jesse's Roundup, a rip-roaring review in the Diamond Horseshoe, and then Goofy Corps at Communicore Hall and at Epcot. So those are two fun things that will also open on May 26th. And they have one more rando thing thrown in there, and I don't know why it's starting on May 22nd instead of May 26th, but they're going to debut the new mission on Millennium Falcon, Smuggler's Run, that is going to star The Mandalorian and Grogu. That's in Hollywood Studios, and again, that's happening on May 22nd.
For offers, there is a 30% off select hotel rooms, or there's a free family dining plans on non-discounted 4-night, 4-day stays. They also brought back the Park Magic ticket, but this year it's a 4-day 4-park Magic ticket for theme park admission that starts at $109 per day plus tax. The catch is that you have to visit each park. You cannot break it into multiple days at each park or exclude one another. So it's just one entrance to each of the 4 parks, which is great that they're adding Magic Kingdom this year because in the past couple of years it's been excluded.
I'm guessing they probably heard a ton of complaints on that because, that's one of the parks that pulls people to Disney World, and putting that type of ticket out there just doesn't really make sense. I think people ended up doing that 3-day park ticket, and then they would add another 1 day for Magic Kingdom because that was really the only way that they could do it if they wanted to have the discounted ticket.
Well, and hard truth, but there's not a lot of Animal Kingdom that's pulling people right now.
Yeah.
Except for Bluey. That's exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting that they're adding that. I just hope that I don't want them to take away the stuff that's there. So I hope that they're not planning to remove things at Conservation Station because I love that space.
They said they're taking away the drawing thing for now.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's sad.
They're taking away Rafiki. He's meeting somewhere else for the time being, if he's even meeting.
I don't like that. Disney.
So
I
hopefully
don't like
this
that
is
at all.
just temporary to draw people to Animal Kingdom because they're good at that.
They definitely need some kind of headliner right now. So, moving into the topic for today, we're going to cover Disneyland and Disney World. They both are Disney parks, obviously, but the experience at each one is very different. If you visited one and go to another and expect it to be similar, you're going to be extremely surprised. So, we're going to talk through that today. And this is from the park size, the length of the trip, the way you use lightning lanes, their dining, ride overlays, like basically anything and everything is very different. There's very few similarities other than the fact that it's Disney.
So normally, most people will start visiting a Disney park that is closer to them. But once you visited your home park a few times, the next logical progression for most Disney goers is visiting the one on the other coast.
And as I was mentioning before, a lot of times people assume it's the same because it's Disney, and it's just in different states. You know, one's in California and one's in Florida, but they're completely different experiences.
So let's start with the biggest difference, which is size. I think people truly don't understand how massive Walt Disney World is until they visit. At Disneyland Resort, you have Disneyland Park and Disney's California Adventure, plus 3 on-site hotels, which are the Disneyland Hotel, Disney's Grand California Hotel and Spa, and Pixar Place Hotel.
And then on the flip side, Walt Disney World, you have 4 parks, Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Hollywood Studios, and Animal Kingdom. Plus, you have 2 water parks and more than 24 hotels. One of the things that we've talked about before, it's a super crazy statistic, is that the entire Disneyland resort property could fit inside the parking lot of Magic Kingdom. So that gives you an indication of how massive Disney World is. I don't think people truly understand it until they go, especially if your home park is Disneyland. I think Krystle said the first time she went, she knew it was larger, but when you actually go and you're used to the size of Disneyland, it's like mind-blowing how large it is.
Yeah, especially with the way it's set up, like Disney World having its own property, its own bubble. It could essentially be its own city. It is the size of San Francisco. And then you have Disneyland that's smack dab in the middle of Anaheim, like what, a couple square blocks?
Yeah.
Like in the middle of a working city. It's so hard to like wrap your mind around it if you've never been to both.
Yeah. And I think Krystle just mentioned the Disney bubble. That is a real thing. You can go to Disney World and pretend that there's zero outside world for the entire time you're there, because all of the transportation, all of the hotels, or the resorts, if you stay on property, everything is in this bubble and you're just in another world for real.
So, because of the size, let's talk about the length of your trip. And it's vastly different on either coast. At Disneyland, most of my travelers ask for 2 or 3 park days, which honestly is enough time to see and do everything that you want to do. I would say 3 days is usually the sweet spot, but a lot of my repeat travelers will do the 2.
And for Disney World, really 5 to 7 days is more typical. And there are people, especially that come over from Europe or from South America, and they spend like 2 weeks at Disney World because there's so much to do. I think most people in the United States just don't have that much time to take off, but that's kind of the minimum amount of time that we're going to recommend for a Walt Disney World trip, especially if it's your first time and you're just trying to get your feet wet and see as much as you can, but not overdo it. So, for example, you're going to come in, you're going to have a travel day, do 2 park days, always put a rest day in the middle, especially if you do more than 3 park days, you should always do a rest day in the middle after 2 days. So, after your rest day, add in 2 more park days and then travel home. So that would just be like a sample itinerary where you have 4 park days and a rest day in the middle. But having rest days is essential at Walt Disney World, not as much at Disneyland. You definitely can add one in, but it's not as essential because you're not there as long and because the parks are not as large and it just doesn't take as much out of you to go back and forth between them as well.
Yeah, those rest days are essential. And I know our first trip, we did not have one. There were some other like travel things that played into that. I think we took like 4 days to recoup. We were dead. And here we are coming from Disneyland thinking, oh, we can do this. This would be easy.
We didn't have a rest day the first day we went either. And we actually used a travel advisor to help us. And I'm really surprised that she didn't recommend this. But we had like 5 park days, I think. Maybe it was 4 park days. And it was like 4 days in a row. And like Krystle said, we were absolute zombies. Like we needed a vacation after that because we were so exhausted. Another thing that's important to note because of the size, kind of going back to the size, the transportation time between your parks is significantly different. When you're going from one park to the other in Disneyland, you're literally walking pretty much like across the street and it takes 5 minutes once you leave one to get to the other. At Disney World, you're talking like 45 minutes to an hour. If you're using park transportation, it just takes longer to get out of the park and then use the transportation and then get back into the next park because it's so much bigger.
And on the topic of transportation, we do have a whole Walt Disney World transportation episode because there are boats and monorails and skyliners and buses, minivans. Like there are all the things to get around. So maybe we'll give that a listen if you're going to Walt Disney World and just to give yourself truly an idea of just how to get around because that could be a big holdup in your week.
And Disneyland has the monorail, but it's not really a form of transportation. It's just like it's almost like another ride. It's not really
you have a park ticket to even ride it. And it's broken half the time. And it doesn't save any time.
No. It's really more about the nostalgia of Disneyland and using it for that reason. It's not really helpful at all. It's faster to walk.
The only time I would say use it is if you are in Disneyland and you're that side of the park and you are staying at the Disneyland hotel, because then you could easily hop on it and go home. But that would be the only time I'd recommend it. All right. Another big thing is dining. At Walt Disney World, sit-down dining is a huge part of the vacation. Restaurants like Be Our Guest, Cinderella's Royal Table, Space 220, they can take an hour and a half to 2 hours easily. And a lot of people are putting 1, maybe 2, almost every single day of their trip.
But at Disneyland, people tend to skip those long meals. And really, even if you do the sit-down meals, they don't typically take quite that long. And there's just not as many. There's a lot of restaurants at Walt Disney World, a lot of options for table service. And Disneyland doesn't have as many of those. It's more of a quick service snack park. I think that's where Krystle gets her quick service. She prefers quick service over sit down. And I think she gets that from being a Disneyland person.
If it's someone's return trip to Disneyland, or if they're there for 3 or 4 days, then I might suggest there are a couple of character meals or a Fantasmic dining package. But aside from that, unless it's like a super special occasion, there's just not time for it. And why waste the time when I can eat the ooey gooey garlic bread and the churros, and there's just things everywhere that I could eat for all day and not stop at quick service, and it's so good.
It's funny because I love to have a sit down, and I think some of that is because my home park is Disney World, and so because the days are so long and the parks are so big and you're on your feet and you just really need time to take a break. And a lot of times I use that as my break for our family is we'll go to somewhere either over lunch or like late lunch to just sit down and take a break and get out of the heat, get off our feet, that kind of thing. But Disneyland is so well known for snacks. And not that Disney World is not. There are definitely snacks at Disney World that people love. But if you're looking at both parks and you're doing a comparison, Disneyland wins for snacks.
Gosh, now I'm thinking about all these things I'm craving, like the breakfast chimichanga. I need some churro toffee. I actually have some hoarded downstairs. I might need to go eat.
Okay, so moving on to lightning lanes. This is a major difference at the two parks. They're a huge part of planning at Walt Disney World because you pre-select your lightning lanes. You have the option to pre-select them. You have to think about that beforehand and and kind of have a plan before you're there and understand these are the different things that we want to do, or you plan your day around it. Then you're also including dining and all of the other things. If you're staying off property, you're able to pick your lightning lanes 3 days before. If you're staying on property, you get to pick 7 days prior to your check-in date. Then once you get into the park, it changes, but we're not going to go into that today just because it's a lot, and we have a whole episode on that we just did recently. So please go back and listen to that if you want a little bit more details on lightning lanes at Walt Disney World. It's significantly more complicated at Disney World than it is at Disneyland.
So the only similarity at Disneyland is the name. That's where it stops. Disneyland works more like the old Genie Plus system. So there are no pre-selections. You must scan into the park before you make your first selection. And I think a lot of people don't realize that one person cannot scan into the park and start stacking lightning lanes. Your whole party has to scan in to be able to make a selection for them. So at Disneyland, not very many rides schedule far out, more than a couple hours, unless it is a special holiday overlay. Those ones fly. So to pick yours there, it's every 2 hours you can pick a new one, or after you've scanned into your current selection, whichever comes first. So you can only ever hold one at a time. But if you know how to do it right, you can ride everything in the park very easily. It just works out there. It never really caught on that way at Walt Disney World. I don't know why they work so differently. Maybe because out there not many people use it because it's more of a locals park. The other major difference is you can add Lightning Lane Multipass into your ticket package at Disneyland and pay it off well before your trip, and then you're not stuck with some sticker shock right before you go.
My parents just went to Disneyland in January. I think my mom was really nervous about not being able to select until they scanned into the park, just because for the last bit, Disney World has been different and you can pre-select up to 3 rides before you're there. And the whole having to wait until you're there to scan in and then you can pick your rides, it just made her nervous. But once she got it, she was like, this is so much easier, and they were able to do a ton of stuff. And it's also much easier when you have Park Hopper and you can just jump back and forth between the parks. It's not the same in Disney World. Even once you're in the parks and you're selecting rides when you're in the parks, you have to really think through, can we get there for whatever time it is that you've selected? If it's within an hour and you're in Magic Kingdom and you've selected something at Hollywood Studios, you have to book it to get there in time. It's not the same with Disneyland. Disneyland is you just kind of jump over there and you're pretty much where you need to be.
I will say one of the biggest downfalls is a lot of rides, especially in Fantasyland at Disneyland, the way they were built and they're so old, there's no room for a second line. So they just don't have the ability to add a lightning lane.
Yeah.
At Disney World, they're pretty good at adapting and expanding rides. But with Disneyland being the OG, there's a lot that just don't have it. So you just need to really be aware of, especially those Fantasyland rides, if you want them.
And the queues in general, a lot of those are mostly outside at Disneyland because it was opened in the 60s. They didn't make them the same way, like Krystle was saying.
Like Julie mentioned earlier, park hopping is where Disneyland absolutely wins. The parks are literally across from each other, less than 100 yards, less than a football field. Easily less than 5 minutes can you be out the gates and through security into the other park. And at Walt Disney World, park hopping can easily take 30 to 60 minutes, depending on your transportation. And it's just a lot. Walt Disney World, unless it's a return trip, unless you're familiar with it, rarely do I even suggest to park hop at Walt Disney World. it can be very stressful.
Especially if it's your first trip and littles, just don't even try it.
Those Disneyland people have no clue what it's like to have to fold up a stroller to get on transportation to get somewhere else.
Okay, so staying on site versus off site at the two parks is extremely different. Walt Disney World has a lot of perks for staying on property. They also have, as we mentioned, over 24 resorts to stay at. And they have a range of like truly like value resorts to moderate price resorts to deluxe and deluxe villa resorts. Some of the perks of staying on property, you get early entry. So 30 minutes before the other park opens for general public or anybody staying off site. You get earlier Lightning Lane bookings, as we mentioned. It's 7 days prior to check-in versus 3 days prior to your first ticket date if you're off property. And then also transportation. Although sometimes, we give the buses a hard time because they're slower, but you still get free transportation within the park. You get, the buses, you have boats, you have the monorail, you have the Skyliner. In some instances, you can walk to the resort depending on where you're staying. So there's lots of perks for sure for staying in the bubble.
I don't know what they were thinking, but Disneyland really doesn't have many perks for staying on site. They just got rid of early entry and added one Lightning Lane for hotel guests. It was very underwhelming and not worth the extra charge. Because there are only 3 on-site hotels at Disneyland, there are dozens of off-site hotels that are just across the street, and some of them are actually closer in proximity than the quote-unquote on-site hotels. Some have water parks, some have breakfast included, some have suites, bunk beds. There are a lot of great options that are very close and often save loads of money and have great perks like a 4th night free, all within easy walking distance.
I think people that stay at Walt Disney World, when they go to Disneyland for the first time, like your brain is automatically thinking like, I need to stay at an on-site, Disney property, but it's really not that big of a deal at Disneyland. One of the things for Disneyland resorts that is very different is they don't have like official tiers either. Like you kind of know based on the pricing, but none of them are really in an official category like Disney World. And then you do have a couple of cool things like the Grand Californian has an entrance into Disney California Adventure. And there's also at Pixar Place, they have a lot of fun Pixar characters that kind of hang around. And I think the Disneyland Hotel it's just very nostalgic. And so I think that's really what draws people to that one in particular.
All right, let's talk airport transportation. At Walt Disney World, you have dozens of airport to resort transportation options from multiple airports, just all around, easy to get to and from airport to resort. Disneyland, on the other hand, doesn't have many. And because of California laws, the ones they do have, they do not provide a car seat. This is the bane of my existence.
Oh, no.
So many families end up just using Uber or Lyft and bringing their own car seats. You do have lots of airports close by. You have Long Beach. You have John Wayne. You do have LAX, but in traffic, you could be an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
But you might have some great nonstop flights. So just kind of depends on what you're looking for. But the options they do have are expensive. If you're okay paying that, if not, just Uber or Lyft.
Okay, ride overlays. Disneyland does this really well. Disney World does this sometimes, but not as often. A couple of examples are the Haunted Mansion, It's a Small World, Guardians of the Galaxy. They also do Space Mountain. It's just so fun, the different overlays that they do. They typically do these for like Halloween and for the Christmas holiday timeframe. I've never experienced these, so tragically, I've not been there. during the holidays, and I've not been able to see these, but I know that they're very popular and they're very cool.
It's been a long time since I've done Small World Holiday because I feel like when we're there in the fall, it's like closed down, getting ready for it, but it is amazing. You have Haunted Mansion Holiday that they start in August and goes through January and has 2 or 3 hour lines. We really like the Guardians, and I love that they change mid-afternoon, so you get 2 different versions if you ride it twice in the same day.
Well, that's fun. I don't think I knew that.
And you can do 2 different lightning lanes on it. It's 2 different options. Another difference is because of the agreements with Universal Destinations and Experiences, Marvel characters east of the Mississippi are tied up with Universal Orlando Resort. So that's why at Walt Disney World, you will only see Guardians, but Disneyland has an entire Avengers campus. So if you are in Florida and would like to see superheroes, you need to go to Universal. But in California, you can see all the friends. You see Spider-Man flying across Avengers campus.
Yeah, and you also get the characters that are walking around. And because Disneyland in general, the characters are much more engaged and interactive with the guests, it's just really fun.
That's one of my most favorite parts about Disneyland. At Disneyland, they just roam. You don't have to like go meet them in a building. They're just out and about in their lands, walking around, meeting Jessie and Woody on the side of the Red Rock Trail by Thunder Mountain, watching Pinocchio and Geppetto walk through Fantasyland, Mary Poppins and Bert just walking around the merry-go-round. It is so much more magical.
Yeah, I think Mary Poppins actually rides the carousel in Disneyland, and you don't really see anything like that for the most part in Disney World. You don't see the characters out like that. And like Captain Hook and Smee and Peter Pan walking around Fantasyland. In Disney World, usually you see characters walking if they're going from like one place to another, not because they're just walking out around to interact with people for the most part. I think Hollywood Studios with Galaxy's Edge, the stormtroopers will interact with people. Otherwise, they don't really do that. They are in locations where you can wait in line to get a picture with them. It's a totally different vibe. Let's do a quick which coast does it better debate on just a couple of different things. First, the castle. Sleeping Beauty Castle versus Cinderella Castle. I'm sorry, I'm going to always pick Cinderella's Castle. I can't help it. I know, but I mean, I understand that my home park is Disney World, but Cinderella Castle is the bomb.
Well, I have such a connection with Sleeping Beauty Castle, but once you see Cinderella's Castle at Walt Disney World, it's just a sight to see. It's breathtaking. It's huge. Do not realize how petite and miniature the Disneyland Castle is.
And when you walk down Main Street at Disney World, it's just like you see the castle at the end, and it's just, like Krystle said, it's just breathtaking to see it. And you don't get that same experience with Sleeping Beauty Castle. I do think, though, one thing that Sleeping Beauty Castle has over Cinderella's Castle is that you can go inside the castle, and you can't do that with Cinderella's Castle unless you're going into like Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique or you're going to Cinderella's Royal Table. You don't really go in the castle. You just kind of walk through a tunnel through the castle, but like that's it. Like there's no going into the castle.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that you couldn't do that. The first couple times I was at Walt Disney World, and then I tried to like cut through the castle thinking, oh, this will be quick. We'll just cut through like at Disneyland. No. And Disneyland also has a whole attraction inside theirs.
Yeah. Next on the list is Pirates of the Caribbean. I don't think this is really much of a debate.
No, any duplicate ride that Disneyland has, that Walt Disney World has, Disneyland does it better. End, period, no debate. Pirates has 2 drops, and it's twice the length. Pirates at Walt Disney World is very depressing, and it doesn't smell right.
There's also something about like the way that you start the ride in California, that you're going through the Blue Bayou restaurant. It's right there on the side, and I don't know. There's just a whole different vibe. It's just way better. And my husband, he pretty much likes everything about Walt Disney World better. He even said that pirates in Disneyland is just tons better than in Walt Disney World. He doesn't even really like pirates in Walt Disney World.
Well, and then you have like Small World. A lot of Walt Disney World purists hate Small World. They just don't understand it. But then you go to Disneyland and you see the characters mixed in, and you get on the boat outside and you see the whole outside that Mary Blair designed, and it's a whole
there's no comparison. There's really no comparison. And especially like at the holidays when it's decorated for Christmas.
Space Mountain, it does not chew you up as bad at Disneyland because the seats are different. You can
I still love it. I love it. I love it on both.
I know, but as a 30-year-old woman, I can't get out of the seats at Walt Disney World.
Excuse me. As a 50-year-old woman, let's not even go there. Okay, so let's talk fireworks. What do you think?
Disney World, the projections, Tinkerbell, the music. Also, they have fireworks every single night. Disneyland only has fireworks on the weekends because school. They're in the middle of the neighborhood.
Yeah, I would agree. Definitely in agreement with that one. I think Disney World takes the cake on that one.
The one thing that Disneyland does right is they do their projections all down Main Street. Disney World is catching up, but so you didn't have to be like right in front of the castle. You could be clear down at the Emporium and see what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you also have some type of nighttime show at 3 out of the 4 parks at Disney World. And you do have it at both of the parks at Disneyland, but it's like either or, and it's only on the weekends.
Now that you say that, Fantasmic, not in the amphitheater that you can just kind of stand around, is a whole different vibe, and nothing can touch World of Color. Although some of the projections at Epcot do make me cry. But
I was going to say, I think they do something similar. But I really feel like if Disneyland did them every night and did them at both parks, you had the option to do like either one, I think that would make a difference. But I think because you have fireworks or some type of nighttime show at 3 out of the 4 parks every night, and sometimes multiple times, depending on when it is, I think Disney World takes this one for that reason. Okay, food.
Well, this one's hard. I guess it depends on what you like. Like snacks and quick service all day, Disneyland. But if I want to rest and I want to do character meals, Disney World.
Yeah. I have a much better experience with the gluten-free meals, Disney World, than I do at Disneyland. And it's not that they don't have options at Disneyland. At Disney World, they have gluten-free menus ready for you everywhere you are, at whether it's a buffet, regardless of if it's table service. On the app, you can, when you're doing online ordering, they have a specific section for gluten-free items. It's very easy. At Disneyland, you have to ask for the most part. There are some restaurants that have that information ready for you, and some of the quick service restaurants in the app have a gluten-free section, but it's not consistent at Disneyland. But I mean, I had a fantastic experience when we went to Goofy's Kitchen. When I told the waitress, she was so nice, and she went out of her way to make sure that I had something that was gluten-free that I liked, and had the chef come out. I mean, very, very nice. It's just not as convenient, I think, as it is at Disney World. Obviously, I like food, but I'm just not like a big foodie person. So, and because of the gluten-free thing, it's harder for me to just be able to just like go like hog wild like with whatever. I think this one would be a tough one for me. I'm basing it on the gluten-free portion of it. If I were able to just eat whatever I wanted to, I think I would be more in like Krystle's corner of Disneyland and doing all the snack things. Disneyland definitely takes park hopping, as we just talked about. I mean, when it takes an hour to get from one park to the other, park hopping's kind of, it's not really a hop.
No, it's work. And it takes a lot of brain power to figure out how you're going to get there.
Yeah.
What's the quickest way?
Yeah.
How are we going to make it? Do we have time?
It can be really stressful. Okay, what are your thoughts on resorts between the two?
Disney World, hands down. I love that there are so many options. I love there are so many different themes. I love the perks. Our last trip to Disneyland, we stayed off-site. I did visit a few of the on-site hotels, and there is that like Disney feeling when you come through the doors and the smells and the shops. But that price point and the non-perks, just they're not worth it to me. I've stayed at the Disneyland Hotel. It is fabulous. It is great. But I don't think there's any comparison.
Yeah, I agree. I did love staying at the Disneyland Hotel, but I think there's also, I don't know how to put my finger on it, but I feel like, and I don't want to say anything like negative about any of the cast members because I think they're all amazing, but I feel like there's more of like the Disney spirit and Disney customer service experience at Disney World. Everybody you see is like, hey, how you doing? How can can I help you when you stay at Disney World? And I just didn't get that same vibe whenever we were at Disneyland.
I think it's part of the demographic. At Disneyland, it's a locals park. A lot of the cast members have been there. They're lifers, but it's just like part of their everyday work. Where at Disney World, you have the college program. You have how many that come from overseas and work, like especially at Epcot.
Yeah.
To work in the different countries. And
I love that.
Yes. But I think because of that, there's kind of a different spirit. There's a different energy.
Yes, absolutely. There's absolutely a different energy. I think that's a good one too to talk about. Like, I feel like Disneyland in general is just more laid back, and Disney World is like very high energy and like bubbly almost. I guess would be maybe a good way to say it. Everybody there is super bubbly. And then last thing, Disney Springs versus Downtown Disney.
This is hard. I love the walkability and ease of Downtown Disney, but it's not like an all-day destination like Disney Springs can be. And there's so many food options, sit-down restaurants in Orlando. They both have World of Disney. They both have like Salt and Straw. They both have like the places that you'd want to shop, but there are just so many more at Disney Springs.
Yeah. And I think the World of Disney at Disney Springs is the largest one. So,
oh, yeah, for sure.
It's just massive. And anyone that's a Disney fan, the minute you walk in, it's so overwhelming. It's the best. It's just the best feeling. It's like, you get this like, light shining down from heaven when you walk in the door.
John was just at the Downtown Disney World of Disney, and he was FaceTiming me. And it was so hard because he was going so fast. And I was like, wait, like, it's blurry. Like, I just want to sit and browse. But, yeah. All right. Well, all this to say, both resorts are incredible, just for different reasons. Disneyland is definitely your smaller, more historic, easier to navigate, and my personal favorite.
And then Disney World is humongous, has so much to do, lots to cover, high energy. And that's my personal favorite because I think we both love our home park. We can't help it.
If you have any sort of love for Disney, you should absolutely try both. Even if it's just once, you need to experience the other, because even though you may think, well, it's going to be the same as where we're at, it's not. We just went through how many different points about how different they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you truly love Walt Disney, the history of Walt Disney, the man, going to Disneyland is phenomenal for that purpose, because he had, not that he didn't have a hand in planning Walt Disney World, but he was actually there for opening day at Disneyland. He had his hands in pretty much everything that's there that's original, and the Disneyland Hotel. So that's just, for me, that was really important that I was able to experience that. As always, we are more than happy to help to get you to either destination. As you can tell, we both have our favorites, but we also both love both parks and want anyone and everyone to experience that love like we have. We thank you all for listening. We've actually had some pretty significant growth recently, and that's all because of you guys, and we really, really appreciate it. If you guys could do us a huge favor when you do listen to the show and you enjoy our episodes, please take like 30 seconds to leave us a review because it helps us continue to grow and be able to bring you content. We hope you have a wonderful week, and we will chat with you all next week. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Wanderlust and Wishes.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform.
And remember, the world is full of wonders waiting to be explored. Until next time, happy travels.
Bye for now.